All right, I am just getting started, and tonight, so last couple of days, right? We started off Monday. I went over mindset on how to get started in real estate. Yesterday, we went over how to automate and scale your business, and today we're going to be talking about how to identify the buyers in your markets on where to focus. And I'm just going to give y'all some free resources. That way, you can get started and you'll have clarity on exactly where to get started at. So let's just jump in here because whenever I first started, people talk about buy boxes, and it really threw me for a loop for the longest time about a buy box, and I thought it was just like, okay, beds, baths, etc. But it's not. It's it's way more than that. It's really understanding your market and understanding where you can make money and where you can't, understanding where you have resources and where you don't. There's a lot to coming up with a buy box, but also there's a lot to understanding how you can make money in real estate. There's a lot to there's a lot to know whenever you look at a deal that's on your table to figure out if you can actually move it across the finish line or not. And time after time, I've had conversations with people who are like, Eric, this is a deal. I know it's a deal. And they'll bring it to me. And then I would look at it. I'm like, where's the deal at? Like, how are you getting paid? And normally that's like one of the first questions I'll ask. Be like, okay, well, what's your exit strategy? How are you getting paid? And they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to sell it. I'm just going to wholesale it. Okay. Who are you going to wholesale it to? And they're like, well, I'll just go and market it and start listing it. And like, we'll put it on Facebook and we'll send out some emails and all these things. But it really doesn't work that way. Can you do it that way? Absolutely. But is that the best way? Not really. It's better to actually understand all that stuff in the beginning. That way, anytime you get a opportunity that comes into your operation, you know who is the buyer if you're not. So we need to identify who are those people. All right, so let's go ahead and let me show you one. I can go ahead and show you in Zillow. Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, all of these free resources are amazing. All right, and they have a lot of good information. So if we scroll down to the bottom right here, you'll see research. Click on research, and then I always fumble around trying to find exactly where it's at. It's visuals. All right, then if you click on visuals, you're looking for a one pager. Let's find one pager. One pager. Let's see. Maybe I clicked on the wrong button. All right, there's a lot of good charts, as you can see. Dashboards. Ooh, I bet it's market reports. Nope, dashboards. Yep, the dashboards, and right here is what we're looking for. Market one pager. This right here is an excellent cheat sheet for you to know exactly what's going on into your market. So, for instance, we can pick any market in the nation, obviously. But let's just go ahead and do Metro. All right. So I can do my backyard. Let's do Greensboro, North Carolina. And we can go ahead and click the little button here on this image. And it's going to come up with the basic information that we need to know about the status of the market. So we can see typical home value, $252,000. So why do we need to know this? Well, if I am looking at a deal that's 300 or 350 or 400 or 450, well, now that tells me that there's a lower buyer pool. So the biggest buyer pool is buying homes around 250. If I have a deal that's 400, my buyer pool is smaller. So I need to know that, and then also I need to know what I got to do in order to make it sell at 450. Right. And the same thing with cheaper homes. Right. There's not a bigger buyer pool on the, less than 200,000. So again, I need to know what I need to do in order to get that property to sell. And you know, really with the lower money, lower less than 250, it's more about, are you able to make money, right? That's the bigger question. So, and then you got typical rent. You definitely need to know your typical rent. So the typical rent is 1,500 in this area, right? In Greensboro. Average listings, right? You need to know this. It even has pre-pandemic. Average listings was 2,400, and it's lower than it was pre-pandemic. And there's a graph here with monthly affordability for new movers, and then there's a graph for new listings. Those are pretty good graphs to actually take a gander at and look at, so you can figure out what's happening in your market. All right, sales. We have 745 versus pre-pandemic of 868. Like, it's not a huge drop, but what's the percentage of that, right? There's always percentages. So with new listings, all right, where is the biggest change in new listings over the year? So if we go from January to November, we can see that the most active time is right here in the summer. And that's April, May, and June. And you'll probably find that most markets are the same. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? Zip codes. All right, zip codes is absolutely important. So with zip codes, we really want to understand population. We really want to understand home values in the zip codes. And it's also very helpful for your team to actually know what's happening with the values in different zip codes, because you can see this 27025 is 206,000 versus this 27260 is 130,000. That's a pretty big difference. All right, like a deal in these two zip codes looks completely different. So again, studying your market, understanding this basic information. And it's not like whenever you first start, you're going to be able to look at this one pager and you're going to actually be able to make sense of it. What you're going to have to do is look at it, discover it, right? Which was what we talked about in day one. And after you discover it, then you're going to start underwriting, making offers, and making action moving forward in your market, and these numbers will start to click. They'll start to make sense. You'll start to see why in zip code 27235 that the average home value is 403,000 versus in 27025 the average home value is 206,000. So again, earlier when I mentioned total home value of 252, well, that's the city as a whole. What really matters is understanding your zip codes. Okay, this is really important. It'll literally make or break investors. Same thing with rents, right? You can see the huge difference in rents right here, 1,000 all the way to 1,800, and that's just the ones that's depicted. They don't have the values on a lot of these. So this one little one pager, if you take this step, this is going to give you a lot of insight to what's happening in your market. And to me, it's invaluable. Like, I want to know this information. Even affordability. So let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I can't make this any bigger, but let's look. So this is the pandemic, right? So 2019, and we can see home prices. So monthly affordability for new movers, and it was setting right at 19%. Well, now the affordability is like upwards of 30%, so 29.9%, which is that's a huge shift. All right, so that tells you that the prices are getting driven sky high. Now, what's my days on market? That is a number that you absolutely want to know. You absolutely want to make sure that you know what is your days on market. So how do you find days on market? Well, I'm sure Zillow has charts that will tell you. So housing market snapshot. Let's see what this looks like. All right, that's United States. Let's see if we can't find that same market. Here's Greensboro again, and boom. All right, so here it is. So days to pending, 20 days. So days to pending versus days on market, that is different. That's a different number, right? There's days to pending, the days under contract, days to close, right? So actually days on market. So days to pending, which means that they got an offer that they're have accepted with no contingencies. Well, that's 20 days. That's pretty short time span for days on market. So properties are still moving pretty good. However, look at the date right here. This is November, and at the time that I'm recording this, it's January 2025. This is November, so this was almost a quarter ago, right? It's almost 3 months ago. So we got to keep that in mind too. A lot can change in 1 month, much less 3 months, right? So let's make sure that we understand what we're looking at and the time frame we're looking at whenever we look at market data. All right. Hopefully you're getting this. Now, median days to pending. All right. We can start looking at historical shifts. This is really good to know. All right. And if you start looking right here, this is November 2024. And then with November 2024, we can pull back to March 2024, 8 days pending. So that's a pretty big shift as far as days on market to pending. And remember, days on market is not days to pending. Okay, days on market is like total days on market, like it's sold. So this is a different metric. Don't let me confuse you with days to pending, just because that's the metric that we're looking at here. But what I want to point out is in March 2024, 8 days versus November 2024 is 20 days. Well, that's a pretty big shift, but is that shift normal year on year? And the only way we can go back and look at history. So let's go back and look at November 2023. Days to pending is 14. And if we come back and look at March, it's 7. So now it looks like that's a pattern. It looks like in the winter months, days on market is just longer. So that doesn't mean that my market is shifting in a bad or downward trajectory. It just means that that is my market cycle. And hopefully that helps you, because if you run back over here, you can really see in 2018, like there was periods where days to pending was 36. All right. And then after 2018, right here, 2019, here is March, 11 days to pending, and I bet you right in here is November. All right, so there's 13, 26, right? So it's definitely a good, nice pattern. But we broke that pattern in 2021 and 2022. But again, in the November months, in the winter months, it still went up. All right, so there's November 6, and then we come back to March, or in January is 4. So that's a pretty big shift. So year on year, I know that in my market, if I have a property that I am moving in the winter months, I can expect longer days on market. So in my underwriting process, I need a budget for that. All right. Hopefully you're getting value out of that. Yeah. Because this is, it's game changing whenever you start really, really doing deals and you start moving things. You need to know this stuff. That way you don't get burnt. All right. And again, Zillow, free information. You literally just go here, go to your research, look at your housing market snapshot. And again, that last one that I showed you is the one pager. All right. And the one pager, every market that you are in, I would have this printed out and I would have my team and make sure they know it. Because again, I'm going to take you back to the zip codes. So again, we can come in my market, Greensboro. Where are you at? Greensboro. There you go. All right. So if we pull up zip codes again, I would want my team to know what this medium home price is in these zip codes, because if they're prospecting and we say, hey, to my VAs, we say, hey, we're looking for homes that are, looking to be sold for, let's call it 70, 75, 80% of 252K. Well, that's Greensboro as a whole. However, earlier, I pointed out the zip code 27235, the medium home price is 403. So if I tell my team that we're looking at 70, 80% of 252, but yet they get a hold of a seller in 27235 zip code, well, now I'm missing out on a lot of deals. So it's important for us to understand this. Yeah. So keep that in mind, because now we can get offers out really quick because we know our market. And this is so important. I talk to so many investors who never take the time out, and they don't even know what the medium home price is in their market, much less zip codes. All right. Now I'm going to blow your mind, because we talked about buyers earlier, and I was like, hey, I'm going to show you about buyers. So if we come into True Lead Creation, which is what we set you up with inside the Deal Boss project, I'm going to show you how to find the biggest buyers in your market, literally a click of a button. And we set you up with all of this stuff. So this is a member's account, and they come in here, and this is how easy it is. This is crazy, so crazy. So when it comes to buyers, again, if you are trying to make money in real estate, you need to know how you're going to get paid on the deal. And if you don't know how you're going to get paid on the deal, then what are you doing trying to generate leads, right? I mean, this is just my opinion and my experience, but I can tell you firsthand, in my real estate journey, I was the buyer in the beginning. I didn't even understand what wholesaling was. I was literally the buyer, and I flipped homes and I added them to my portfolio. And then one day I realized that I'm paying wholesalers a lot of money, and I was like, hey, why don't I learn how to generate deals, generate leads? And that's what we started doing. But then all of a sudden I wasn't the buyer. And even though I'm extremely confident on the phone, I can get on the phone, I can talk to any seller, and I can have utmost confidence if I am the buyer. I lost confidence whenever I wasn't the buyer, and then I tried to do the wholesale thing just because of my integrity issue, right? It just felt weird. But then I discovered, hey, why don't I go out and find the biggest buyers in my market? And now whenever I generate leads, generate deals, and I don't want them, now I hand them off, and now I can buy more and add to my portfolio. So inside the Deal Boss project, we set you up with this right here. We show you how to do this. Joseph owns 126 properties. Do you think that he's a good buyer? Right? Yeah, duh. Right? If I get a deal in Joseph's market, well, what market is Joseph's in? Well, you got the zip code. We know that Joseph owns a property in Jacksonville, Florida, in the zip code 32209. So whenever I come across a property in that zip code, now all I do is come right here, filter this out, and I'm getting on the phone with Joseph and saying, hey, man, I see that you're a portfolio investor, and I'm wondering if you're looking to add to your portfolio. I got a great deal in blah, blah, blah zip code in blah, blah, blah neighborhood. Would you be interested? And Joseph's like, yeah, right? Like, he owns real estate versus all these other people, right? I would never, ever spend time with Michael Smith, who owns one property. I would never call him. Like, there's just no sense in it. So knowing who is the buyer is extremely important. And what we do inside the Deal Boss project is literally your first week, we get you to uncover and find and identify 5 anchor buyers. So literally your first task is to find 5 anchor buyers. That way, whenever you start generating leads and you start generating deals, you don't stumble. You have confidence, and you know, because you already talked to Joseph, and you're like, Joseph is an anchor buyer. I have him in my system. And Joseph buys in this zip code, and he's looking for this type of property, and this is his exit strategy. And we call that our big 3. I want to know Joseph's state, I want to know his asset type, and I want to know how he exits. Because if Joseph is a long-term landlord, meaning he rents properties out for mostly like a year or longer, right? He's a long-term landlord. Then he's going to be looking at deals very differently than David, who may be a short-term landlord, meaning he only rents properties out via short-term. Well, you can make way more profits in short-term, and also because of that, you can spend more money on purchasing the deal. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Same thing like if we move from landlord to flipper. They look at deals completely different, so therefore we need to know that and identify that. All right, so that's a game changer. Now let me show you this. I took you to Zillow and I showed you free resources. Okay, now I'm going to show you something that we put together for for some of our members, and we're going to identify the top 10 zip codes to invest in. And this information, I mean, it's public information, guys. You just got to learn where to go get it. All right, so let me pull it up here. And what most people do is they buy a list, and then they start uploading that list to a dialer or SMS, the direct mail, like whatever the strategy is that you're choosing, and they have no clue on who they talked to and what was the results of that conversation. They have no clue. And again, it doesn't make sense to me. I have no clue why like investors choose to put themselves through that pain, right? Instead, I want to know. I want to know when I call somebody that number's wrong. And if that number's wrong, I want to mark it as wrong, and I want to automatically move to the next phone number and never have to worry about calling that wrong phone number again. And that's what the bullseye marketing method is all about. We roll you in, and you only work correct phone numbers. And after you get that compound effect where that pipeline is full of actual leads, like your deal flow skyrockets. Like it's crazy. So in order to identify your best zip codes, we take you through a process right here. And like this is Jacksonville, Florida again, right? And we're looking at the top wholesale markets in Jacksonville, Florida. And this zip code right here, 32254. All right, it's got a population of 13,000. That's important. Why do I talk about population? Well, I talk about population because if I am in a zip code or a city, let's use a city. It's easier to kind of understand. If I am in a city that's in a rural area and the population is 10,000, there's probably not that many properties in that zip code or that city. And not only is there not that many properties, but there's not that many sellers or buyers. You see what I'm saying? And I talk to so many investors like, Eric, help me underwrite this deal. And I'll look at the deal and I'm like, dude, like, what's your exit strategy? Like, what are you doing? Who's going to buy this property? Like, it's out in the middle of nowhere. They're like, yeah, I know, but I was born and raised there and I know that this is a deal. I'm like, okay, maybe you're right. How much time and effort and energy are you going to have to spend on trying to make this a deal? Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to make it a deal. So what we did was we built a system called Cash or Trash. And in the Cash or Trash system, you rank your properties 1 through 5. And there's like 10 different metrics that you look at that's really easy. One of them is how far of a commuting distance is it to the major metro, right? So the major population area. So for instance, again, I'm out here located in Greensboro, North Carolina. Greensboro has a population of roughly 300,000 people. That's a big city. But it's not like Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Charlotte, North Carolina has even more people, more population. So why do I bring that up? Well, you got these two cities, and if you find a deal that's located 20 minutes outside of either one of those cities, you could be in a zip code or an area that has a population of like 1,000. Well, it doesn't mean that just because it's in a population of 1,000, it's not a deal. There could be somebody who is willing to spend good money to live there, that's willing to commute to go and get a good paying job that allows them to afford the property, right? Hopefully this is making sense to you. But that's what you look at whenever you start really working real estate. You start looking at, why is there an opportunity here to make money? Not, oh, this feels good, right? Like we like facts, right? We like numbers. So when you look at this, well, what we did with this member is we pulled the top 10 wholesaling zip codes. And then we pulled the top cash flow zip codes. And we pulled the top cash flow zip codes, wealth zip codes, and then creative finance zip codes. And there's an algorithm behind all this. But essentially, we married all 40 zip codes together, and then we got him a list of like roughly 5,000 to 7,000 records to start with. Well, out of those records, we got him motivated sellers and buyers. All right, it's one and done. And now they're on to the races. They have everything they need, but also they have clarity. And this is where again, in day 3 here, that I'm going through market research with you because this is so important to understand. So in Jacksonville, Florida, right here with this member, what we identified is zip code 32220. Now he knows that this is one of the top zip codes for wholesaling, and he knows that days on market is around 47. Why is that important? Well, because down here at the bottom, days on market is 69. That's a pretty freaking big difference. All right, that's a little over 3 months versus 2 months. All right, that's a huge difference. In your flipping world, that's literally a whole nother month of interest payments to your hard money lender or private money lender. All right, that will make or break your business in a heartbeat. Hopefully that makes sense, right? In the wholesaling world, well, now you're just delaying the inevitable, right? Like, the longer time that you have to hold a property in escrow, well, now you've got to keep nurturing that seller and make sure that they're good to close. And the longer time you let that span out, well, the more stuff that could come up, right? So, you know, one of the nightmares is like whenever their family member comes in and they start planting seeds inside of the seller's mind, and they're like, oh, you should just not do this. Don't do this. And then all of a sudden, you know, that black swan comes up and they don't want to close anymore, which happens. So it's really important to understand days on market in the areas that you're looking at. Even though this is days on market on the MLS multi-listing service, it's still important even when you're going direct to buyer, meaning like you have the buyers like I showed you earlier, and then you're contacting them and then closing, because again, you have to market the properties, and then when you market the properties, they still have to get approved for funds, or you have to verify their funds. They have to verify the property condition. Like, there's still a time window here that you have to really plan for. And after you get this rolling again, you're going to know it because you're in your market. And this is the whole point of market research. Again, medium listing price, all right, 310,000, and you can see the price difference here, right? There's a couple of more zip codes right here, 32211. The medium home price is 280 versus 310. That's a pretty big difference, guys. Like, that's a pretty big freaking difference. Again, you definitely want to look at properties or your market by zip codes. And if you can, look at it by neighborhoods. That's even better, right? I've never really invested in like a city, what I would call like where you look at blocks, like a New York or New Jersey, something like that, where like literally it's a block. And if you go across the street, like it's a completely different market. I've tried to help people comp in those areas, but it's a little rough. So I'm transparent. I'm like, nope, this isn't for me, man. Let's go find you somebody in that market, because literally you're talking about a block, and properties on this side of the road are completely different than properties on the other side of the road, and you can really get yourself in trouble. The reason I'm explaining that is because we got a list of zip codes right here. And again, zip code 32225, medium home price or listing price is 414,000. That's a massive difference between 310,000 or 280,000. So again, really important for you to know and understand this. Even your price per square feet, that's really important. Like flipping. All right. So when I flip, I never look at my medium home price or anything. I always look at the square feet, because a lot of times when we flip, maybe we want to add a little bit, like adding 300, 500 square feet to a home can greatly change the price margin that you can make, and it doesn't cost a lot of extra money in your rehab budget. But at the same time, if the price range is there and the margin is there, it can make a massive difference on the money you actually make. And again, like time goes into that, right? So again, a market research. Now, if you're just wholesaling, this is going to make you look really super intelligent to your buyers, right? Real estate agents don't even know this stuff. Can't tell you how many real estate agents I talk to, and I ask them what the medium home price is, and they give me this big generic number of like 252,000. But I'm like, but I am talking about a property that's located, you know, in zip code 27235, which is medium home price of 403,000. They're like, yeah, you know, it still go for about 250. I'm like, you have no clue, right? So again, really important to understand market research. All right, hopefully this is bringing you value and you're getting this, how important this is. So let me show you this. I'm going to show you what's happening right now in the market. And we're going to look at a downward market, and we're going to look at a market that's still in the wealth phase. So actually, the Jacksonville, Florida is a great example because this is actually a downward turning market. So I'm going to introduce and explain to you what the wealth phase is. I learned this a couple of years ago building my portfolio, and it changed the game for me. It gave me a whole nother perspective on what to look for in where I'm investing and where I'm putting my portfolio. So, yesterday, if you was with me, I went over the different phases and journeys that we go on as an investor. A lot of investors start off because they want to make cash. But then as soon as you get cash flow coming in, you want to start building your wealth. And what we're talking about is active income versus passive income. Yeah. So if that is true, well, where do I want to park my money passively? Well, honestly, guys, I was born and raised, and I was told my entire life that whenever you buy property, to keep it forever, and you want to keep that home, and you want to pass it on to your kids and family, and that's how you build wealth. Well, a couple of years ago, I discovered this wealth phase, and that was proven wrong. All right. And this blew my mind, but it's, again, backed by facts. Like, numbers don't lie. So let me break this down for you. And this isn't super complicated to understand. Just it depends on if you want to like get into the weeds with it. In short, what you want to do is you want to be in this green area, right? And inside the Deal Boss Project, if you jump into Skool and do all those things with us, you can go to dealbossproject.com/invite, join our free Skool group, and we go over this stuff, and I'll help you understand your market. We'll run through what we call the Deal Boss Investing Guide. That way you can understand what's happening in your backyard, okay? So the wealth phase is in this green area. Now, essentially, if I had to, teach my kids this, what I would say is, hey, you want to buy whenever they first enter this wealth phase. And then you want to sell whenever they exit the wealth phase. And then you want to own nothing in this white. That's it. Okay. Now, what am I actually talking about? Well, the reason real estate is so valuable and so powerful is this thing called appreciation, right? Like, appreciation is king. All right. There's nothing sexier than appreciation. There's nothing. Okay. So if you look at this line right here in the middle, this is 0% appreciation. So that means that if you buy the property on that line and it does not appreciate or depreciate, meaning go down in value, then it does not, there's no values change. So you paid $100,000, it's still worth $100,000. However, that doesn't exist in the real estate market, yeah? So we can go ahead and cancel that out. Now, what do we need to understand? Well, I'm going to break down the 08-09 real estate crash for you right here in this market and show you what we're looking at. But what's happening in these wealth phases is the data and the market is statistically showing a positive increase in appreciation year over year or quarter over quarter. And it's better to say quarter over quarter because I didn't know this either. This blew my mind and really changed the game. If you are in real estate and you are constantly looking at properties, constantly, searching, generating leads, etc., you're working your market, you will see shifts in the market about 6 months before anybody else knows that it's happening. And that's the reason we call real estate agents and we ask them what's happening. But most of them have no clue. They just literally list a property, and their brokerage, they have no clue either because they're not really looking for that type of information, right? Nothing against real estate agents. They're not a study in the game. Okay. But us as investors, we need to be a study in the game. We need to actually study our market and understand when we need to buy and when we need to exit. Well, that's what I'm showing you here. So with the positive appreciation, we exited right here in Jacksonville, Florida in roughly 2006. Now, I was still in high school then, and I remember working at my mom and dad's car lot, and customers was coming up, and they was just like obliterated. Like you could see the pain on their face. I remember the pain on their face. And they was talking about how essentially they just lost all of their retirement, and it happened overnight. Real estate doesn't shift that quick. Real estate takes roughly 6 months. So earlier when I was talking about if you're in the market, if you're working it, you're going to notice changes, and the market in general will not react to it for another 6 to 8 months. So you have time, but that's only if you're in the market. And if you're ever like me, you always wonder, like, man, why can't I just get in something whenever it's early? Like, like crypto. Like, why can't I just get into crypto when it was first coming out, And I just never been that lucky, honestly. But with real estate, numbers don't lie. So now I can see that. And now I just wait for time, and I consistently capture positive appreciation year over year, and my wealth exploded. So for me, like I started buying real estate when I was 28, and I walked away from my W-2 when I was like 32 and worth well over $2 million in my portfolio. And that's the name of the game for appreciation. Matter of fact, it happened with us where we didn't even realize what we've already created until we sat down with our CPA, and our CPA is like, you guys realize that this is what you have. And even now it's just like trying to comprehend it, right? I don't know what it is. Like, I think it's more of like programming, right? When we're in school, right? We got to get programmed. We get programmed with our parents, and maybe you guys, don't have that same experience that we did, but that's just me being honest. It's still weird. Okay. But I understand it, and I can repeat it. And that's what I'm showing you here. I want to show you the repeatable process. So back to the crash. Oops, wrong line. This is roughly 2008, almost 9. And you can see this downward turn. So this is a negative 25%. It's depreciation every year, right? It's not appreciation. So this is a negative 25% depreciation year over year. And, you could imagine what happened if someone bought a property in Jacksonville, Florida, right here, setting on, what is this, roughly 2006 and a half. And, they're setting real nice and pretty up here. And then, boom, they just lost 25% overnight. But it wasn't only overnight. It was year after year, and they had to wait. 2007, 8, 9, 10, all the way to 2013 in order for their appreciation to start back up positively again, so they could actually come out of the hole. But even then, they didn't come out of the hole because this is year over year. And that's something that people don't, I don't know if people, but I know that I didn't realize, right? Because it's a compound effect year over year. So what I'm saying is, on the positive side right here, if I start to recognize a positive 3% appreciation, well, that's 3% appreciate a whole year. My value has now shifted. Now I wait a whole nother year and I appreciate another 3% on that, right? And that's compound interest, yeah? Right? So, you got to think about that with real estate. Now, you can imagine owning real estate right here in the pandemic, whenever we start to really appreciate at 20%. That's insane, right? Like, a lot of money was made. And now, where we are now, you can see this line start to shift down. And, you know, just look at it really soon. Jacksonville, Florida is going to be out of the wealth phase, and they're going to be in a downward trajectory for, you know, whatever time span that is. Obviously, we can't predict that, but we can see what's happening. Okay, hopefully y'all found some value out of this, because this is like, I geek out on this. This is getting really interesting. Now, we can also look at other markets here. And let's see, if I go and look at, what's another good market? Let's look at Atlanta. Atlanta. Georgia. All right, see, this wealth phase looks completely different than Jacksonville. All right, so you can see the appreciation or the depreciation here. And then you can also see that they actually recognized another wealth phase. And you can see the appreciation that they caught during that time as well. That was back in 1985. Okay. And then right here in 1995, all the way to 2007, again, positive appreciation year over year. Like, there's a lot of money to be made. And then if you exit here and then buy again there, it is better than recognizing all of these losses year over year, depreciating assets, and just holding it because that's what you were told, which is wrong. Okay, if we actually did the math on that, I'll put together a video too and show you the actual math on buying two properties in the same market and exiting during the wealth phase versus keeping and holding it during the wealth phase, because it'll blow your mind. Like, it's crazy. But again, look at the wealth phase. It's not the same. This is Atlanta, Georgia. All right, they're wider, they're longer. Atlanta, Georgia right now is still at a positive, what, 3% appreciation? So still really good market. It looks completely different than Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, Florida, we're about to go below the 0% appreciation mark. That's pretty scary, yeah? All right, so just to recap, what we went over tonight is studying your market. All right, I showed you Zillow. You can go to the one pager, you can go to your market analysis, and you start to understand what your zip codes look like. That's really important when you start to invest. You need to understand days on market. And then I showed you how we can go out and find the best zip codes to market in. And then we can find the best buyers without having to wonder who's going to buy our deals, because we're looking at people who already own 90, 100. There's one account, no joke, we found several buyers. Like, I don't know, like, it's crazy. We found, like, I think it was 6 buyers that owned over 1,000 doors. All right, like, do you think that that guy is ever going to have an issue selling their deals? And the answer is no, absolutely not. We have their contact number, we have their email, we're good to go, right? So that's something to take into consideration. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Hopefully you got value out of this. I would love to see you inside the Deal Boss Project. Just go to dealbossproject.com/invite, and I'd love to jump on the Zoom with you and look at your market and go from there. If you're interested in getting your operations and marketing set up for 2025, that's what we're doing nonstop. I'm definitely opening up the floodgates as far as giving you guys everything we have, because it's game changing, and we, you know, let's take advantage of these next 4 years. All right, let's do that. Yeah. All right. Peace out. Stay blessed by the best.